So looking over to our Seattle Kraken here, who had an interesting past week, not only for the teams that they played over the past week in their 3 games, but also due to some headlines that were made by General Manager Ron Francis with the trade deadline circling around. So looking over here to the past week of games, March 2nd at home versus the Nashville Predators, Seattle was able to get a big win there on 3/2 day, winning that game 4-3. Player of the game would be forward Colin Blackwell with 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points, a 1+-, and 3 shots on goal. March 5th at the Washington Capitals in a rematch of Seattle's 2-5 win, 5-2 win back in, that was December, losing that game by a score of 2-5. Player of the game would be once again forward Colin Blackwell with 1 goal, 1 point, 1 shot on goal, and 2 hits. March 6th at the Carolina Hurricanes, playing arguably the best team in the league, losing that game 2-3. Played the game forward Kalle Järnkrok with a goal, an assist, 2 points, a 1+-, 3 shots on goal, 1 hit, and 1 block. So a tough past week for Seattle, but you played some of the better teams in the league over that stretch there. Nashville, the team you beat for the first win in franchise history, doing that on what is now known in the city of Seattle as Kraken Day, March 2nd, for the 32 reference there, the 32nd franchise, all the way that plays in. Seattle sending their fans home happy with a big win against Nashville there, with Colin Blackwell getting the winning goal in the third period, going on the road for a 5-game road trip, playing those first 2 games of it in Washington against the Capitals team that's been near the top of the standings since the season began, and then playing Carolina, who, for the most part of the year has been the best team in the league, and to battle them and lose with that final goal in the third period, I wouldn't be mad at it overall, considering where this team is. And especially because as we look over to injury news, both forwards Jaden Schwartz and Jared McCann were activated off of IR. Forward Austin Czarnik was placed on waivers in response to this move. And also another responding move was that Cole Lind was sent back to Charlotte. Czarnik would be picked up off of waivers from the New York Islanders, the team that put him on waivers back in the first place. So good to get Schwartz and McCann back. McCann was worried that he would be out for some extended period of time like Schwartz was. That wouldn't be the case. It would only be out a week or so. And Schwartz, to get him back, he made an impact in that Washington game and should help this team get more goals and generate more offense as we continue forward. So looking into team news here, we've got some bits and pieces. We look over at the Ron Francis press conference that took place on March 1st. The team will be aggressive in free agency, is a direct quote. The team is open for business at the trade deadline, and they have to listen to everything. Has said that has not had any conversations with number 2 overall pick Matty Beniers yet about joining the team this season, but that agents will generally want their player to join the NHL in order to burn a year off of the ELC. The ELC is effectively the same thing compared to baseball with service time. And then the final thing was looking at a new contract for Jared McCann. So I believe that if we look at this team, right, you're an expansion team. Some people around the league and your fan base were not exactly happy with how the expansion draft went. You might want to move on from some players, right? With that being said, there is a core that I look at as untouchable. You've got Jared McCann. You have to lock up for a decent amount of time. That's a good point. Jaden Schwartz, those 2 guys who were activated off of IR, I would consider untouchable. Yanni Gourde is someone I would want around on my team as a successful piece. Morgan Geekie's young, and I wouldn't move that talent because he continues to show his promise and a ceiling that continues to rise. I would keep Philip Grubauer just because, one, you've got him signed to a 6-year deal, and that would be a cap issue, right? But also because when he's been able to settle down and get good defensive play in front of him, he's been exactly what you've expected of him. I really can't look at many of the defensemen and say that they look untouchable. I mean, maybe Adam Larson. I would try to get Hayden Fleury some more playing time, but also that name in particular in Hayden Fleury ties into what we have in team news on March 3rd. A report came out about Kraken trade rumors and the trade deadline. Mark Giordano is reportedly as good as gone to a contender. Giordano reportedly has a list of 10 teams that he is willing to be traded to, but he is confident that Seattle will trade him to a contender anyway, and that a contender would be trading for him regardless. So he's reportedly as good as gone, and that some players are quote unquote not happy with their situations. Now, I talk about Fleury in that instance because Hayden Fleury has been someone that's been vocal about not being happy about hitting a healthy scratch, not getting enough time on the ice, and so on and so forth. And I understand that he's a young defenseman that I would like to personally see get a lot more playing time. And I think it would certainly make sense if Giordano was traded. He's got the 1 year on his contract. He's not going to be on the team next year, more than likely. He just hit 1,000 games, which is pretty cool. But just considering the fact that it doesn't seem like with as many rumors as we've gotten that Giordano wants to continue to be on this franchise going forward, it makes sense. A team that needs a veteran defenseman heading into the Stanley Cup playoffs, why not get some value out of him, right? Instead of letting him hit free agency and then letting him go anywhere and not getting anything back. So I would expect that to take place before we hit the NHL trade deadline. The NHL trade deadline, if we look here, NHL trade deadline is on the 21st of the month. So that's coming up. That'll come into play. And more than likely, as we near that date, we'll hear more and more rumors about it. And we may even get a deal sooner rather than later. So the Kraken record sits at 17 wins, 36 losses, 5 overtime losses, resulting in 39 points. The division standing is 8th in the Pacific Division. And again, that will probably not change for this season. Looking ahead, Seattle will play March 8th at the Toronto Maple Leafs at 4:30, March 10th at the Ottawa Senators at 4 o'clock, and March 12th at the Montreal Canadiens at 4 o'clock. So continuing that road trip and all of those games being in Canada.